You can leave your comments below about why I should quit YouTube now. Okay, so a number of people have been telling me to check out Ron's Gone Wrong ever since it was released. I guess it's because of the premise alone, considering my affiliation for that sort of thing now. The movie is about a kid who's really awkward and doesn't know where their life is going, but then suddenly they befriend a robot and go on this life-changing adventure, and hey, didn't I review a movie like this before? Multiple times? Okay, that doesn't mean the movie's automatically going to be bad, but looking at the trailers, I frankly just wasn't interested in it. I took one look at these human models and I was just honestly really turned off by them. On top of that, it just looked really generic, like I've seen this sort of thing before. But everybody I knew was telling me, Razor, you gotta watch it, it's actually really smart and funny, and oh, you're gonna love Ron, and it's super sweet and stuff, and I was like, okay, fine, alright, I'll watch it. So I did, and it is perfectly fine. There's honestly not much else to add outside of that. I can see where people are coming from when they say this movie is good, like with Ron himself and his relationship with Barney. So in the movie, there are machines called the B-Bots. Huh. Are you guys sure I haven't reviewed this yet? Anyway, these machines are supposed to work like cell phones, only instead they're a robot that, over time, begins to learn about the user and their interest. Of course, this leads to people becoming naturally obsessed with them and becoming too dependent on them, and yeah, that's where the message of the movie is going, but I'll come back to this later. One boy by the name of Barney doesn't have one, however, and so has become an outcast in his school. But for his birthday, his father manages to get one despite how rare they are to get now. The problem, however, is that this one is broken. Ron, which is a nickname for his barcode, doesn't have all the features that all the other bots do. So this means that he has to learn to be Barney's friend the hard way. And of course, this is when the movie is at its absolute best. Kind of like Baymax in Big Hero 6, Ron is genuinely the best part of the film, mainly because you always believe he's genuine. Every time he does something, you actually feel like he has the best of intentions. This leads to some of the funniest moments in the movie, like when he invites a random biker and homeless guy to Barney's school and stuff. He even kidnaps a baby at one point because it liked his picture, and his job is to find Barney friends. On top of just being funny, it really does make their friendship very believable. Barney is also a pretty solid main character. Not amazing, but I do like how he's just a weird kid, like the fact that he likes to collect rocks and has asthma, and his grandmother's from Soviet Russia. By the way, I love the grandma. She's my actual favorite character in this movie. This actually helps tie in very well with the message this movie is going for. It's not an automatic, ugh, technology is bad, you should put your phone down, none of that typical bullshit. The movie actually does highlight the good uses of technology like this, like how it can actually bring people together. It's also a good commentary about how we often do rely too much on social media to tell us what we like, what we don't like, who our friends are, who they should be, and it's genuinely strong stuff. I just wish the movie was like this all the time. The bond between Barney and Ron is just plain fun, charming, and feels very genuine. But unfortunately, when the movie breaks away from them, that's when it all goes downhill. For starters, it has to have the fucking corporate bad guy, and he's honestly one of the worst examples of this I've ever seen. Absolutely zero character outside of, we've got to have money. Like, seriously, he is so one-dimensional that it hurts. Mainly because when the movie is just focusing on Barney and Ron, the relationship that they build off of each other helps make the whole argument about the benefit of technology feel more believable. But then you have this asshat who's all about, man, fuck the kids, I want money. Technology is all they need to survive. And it not only contradicts that point, it also makes the message feel way more ham-fisted. He actually reminds me of the villain from the Lorax, only not as over the top. He weirdly just shows up and becomes the main antagonist halfway through the movie. It honestly feels like the movie didn't know what to do for the second half, so they just inserted a bad guy in there because why not? What else are we supposed to do? There's literally a scene in the movie where he sees that Barney is dying in the woods and then decides, you know what? Just forget about it. We're never gonna find them. Like, dude, are you kidding me? He just wants the bot destroyed because he genuinely believes it's dangerous. Why did you have to make him out to be this much of an asshole when all it does is hurt the movie overall? The whole point of the film is for humans to reconnect with each other, and yet you couldn't even write your villain like a normal human. What's up with that? Then there's the CEO of the company who's the exact opposite, and I mean that in the worst way. He's just the typical really nice guy who made the boss to be a good thing, and oh, I was just trying to make the world a better place, and yeah, this totally feels like a real person that totally exists. Why not just combine these two characters and make it to where he started out that way at first, but over time just got caught up in the corporation? He made the B-Bot in order for it to be someone's friend, but over time people began to see it just as a tool, and as time went on, so did he. but Ron would then remind him of the reason he made the bot in the first place. But no, he's just super nice and has to compete with this asshole, and they're both just complete opposites, and it's just a really black and white argument, and that's not meant to be taken in that way. You know what I meant when I said that. I feel like this message was done a lot better in the movie WALL-E. Mainly because throughout the whole movie, WALL-E steadily begins having an impact on the people. The captain at first doesn't like the idea of going back to Earth, and thinks they're all better off in space. But over time, thanks to WALL-E's influence, he soon gets really passionate about Earth. And not just him, but other people as well. In WALL-E, everyone's become so attached to their screens that they literally have no idea they're in a spaceship. So again, thanks to WALL-E's influence, they take the screens down and begin to interact with each other. Both humans and robots. But in Ron's Gone Wrong, it feels like most of these characters just learn that lesson out of nowhere. You have all these side characters that go to Barney's school, and frankly, these side characters make the side characters in Big Hero 6 look like the side characters in Encanto. They're all just really flat and not that interesting or funny themselves. I guess this one girl is okay at best. The scene where she gets humiliated and we actually get to see her struggle was genuinely very strong, and I do believe she changed by the end, but everyone else just feels so out of left field. Some of these characters have like 5 lines of dialogue, and yet they're suddenly on Barney's side, and they've gone through a big change, and there's this one scene where they're all talking about how they were friends when they were kids, and it just feels so forced and rushed, especially when the scene is in the last half hour. Speaking of which, I also feel like the big climax itself was really unnecessary. There's a point in the movie where you think it's gonna end, but then suddenly it's like, no, we gotta break into the corporation and get my friend back, and it just feels really needless. I'll admit, though, I do like the choice that Ron does make in the end, which I won't spoil for this video, but it does help with the message a bit more, even if I still think the whole sneaking in part is unnecessary. It just feels like they wanted to have some big, suspenseful final act, when in reality, the movie is at its strongest when it focuses on the smaller stuff, like Barney and Ron's relationship. The scene where Ron lights up for Barney because he's scared of the dark, even though Barney never told him that was wholesome as fuck, dude. But this?
Access the security cameras.
There aren't any. It's the woods.
Insane.
This is dumb. So overall, I'm glad I saw it, but it really feels like something is missing from it. When it focuses on our 2 main leads, it's great. But when it goes back to the corporate bad guy and the weak side characters, it just buckles underneath the weight. It has a great message, and sometimes it can be very powerful with it. But other times, it can be very ham-fisted and contradictory, and it makes me want to punch something. I'm glad I saw it, but I think it's just good enough for one viewing, and that's about it. It really does have the same weaknesses that Big Hero 6 suffered from, which really does suck because, like with Big Hero 6, I see the potential here. This had the ability to be this really smart, really thought-provoking kids film, but sadly, we just got a film that's overall fine. I will admit the weaknesses aren't as bad as in Big Hero 6, as this movie does have the benefit of being on a smaller scale than Big Hero 6 was, but even then, the weaknesses are still pretty weak. So I think out of those 3 movies with human and robot bonding, I think this is the weakest of the 3 so far. And now that I've reviewed this movie, everyone and their Russian grandmother is going to want me to review The Iron Giant, even though we all know it's a cinematic masterpiece and there's no point in me making that video at all, so I'm not going to. Fuck off!